Hi, and welcome to Tony Time. Well, I haven't seen you for a while. I've been out and about and running around, and here we are today. So go get your coffee, have a seat. We have a young lady on our show. I know her mom very well, Elizabeth Scheuer. Miranda Bennett, young lady, has a blog. We're going to learn what this is all about. We're going to learn what she is about and kind of go back to what our show is about here, which is if you can think it, you can do it. So I want to welcome you to the show, Miranda.
Thank you so much for having me.
You are very welcome. Now, let's start off with, you just got back from London, didn't you? Or
Yeah, so I was in London doing a master's degree in anthropology and economic development. And it was in London, it was wonderful. It was
how long were you there for?
It was a year. It's a calendar year-long program. So I went in September of 2013 and then ended in October of 2014. So yeah, so I've actually been home for a while now, but it was a great program. I mean, I knew.
So what exactly, so our audience understands exactly what you were learning?
Yeah, well, so I graduated from college with a history degree and a sort of a focus in the Middle East. And so I thought that I wanted to do economic development that was focusing on that region. And because I had also studied Arabic, and so I was really interested in, I don't know, helping this area, but also just learning a lot more about it. And so I was working for an arts organization that focused on Arab arts. And that was great. I was in Philadelphia because I went to school outside of Philadelphia. And then I just realized that I liked the work we were doing, but it was very focused on Philadelphia, and it was about like the community there, understanding the Arab world more. But
what fascinates you about the Arab world?
Yeah, well, I thought about it, and I can't really pinpoint it, but all I can say is that I came of age in post September 11th and the invasion of Iraq, and I think I was not sure like what was going on politically, but I knew that we didn't know enough, or that like sort of the general public did not know about this part of the world that we were becoming embroiled in. And I was interested, and I love languages. I'd studied French in high school, and so when I got to college, I thought, well, this is a great opportunity to study Arabic. And so it started with the language, which is incredibly difficult, but it is a beautiful language, really. It's really, really nice. But from there, I wanted to learn more about the culture and the history. And then, you just start meeting people from there. And so sort of things build on each other, and you just get more and more invested in the area. But I think, yeah, history was my lens. But then after leaving college and working for this arts organization and seeing, the use of arts as a way of exploring the area and the people.
It's a great idea.
Yeah, it was really smart, and I think it made a great impact in Philadelphia in this world, both for Arab Americans who are there who don't grew up in Philadelphia and never went to the Middle East but are interested in their heritage, but also for people who, like me, sort of became interested politically and then wanted to learn more. So,
well, during 9/11, how old were you then?
So I was just about to go into high school.
Wow, so it really impacted your...
Yeah, it did, because I don't know, I was just so thrown off by, our response to it politically, but also I just thought, we're pouring money into this region and, acting in a very aggressive way, and yet nobody seems to know why this happened. It was just a response, but there was no investigation of why would these people be driven to do this, and what did our role, in the past have to do with what was happening now. So I think that's what I was interested in.
I mean, what you've mentioned here is a very simple observation of this, where people sometimes can clutter that.
Yeah.
But what you described is very true. Why? How come? Where is this coming from?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think I understand there was this like a gut reaction to respond to an attack, but and I don't really want to like talk about like what we should have done or what we
No,
didn't
no,
do,
no, no, no.
but I do think that with a little bit more knowledge and understanding and curiosity about these people, I think
So now that took you to London.
yeah. So I thought, well, I want to do development work. So there's this whole world of like NGOs and trying to help poor countries, and I wanted to improve it. Like I saw that we have this big foreign aid agency, USAID, and then there's international aid organizations as well, and it's an entire industry on its own. But I didn't feel like it was making an impact. I mean, it's been around for a long time, and what's the sort of equilibrium that's coming out of it? And so I wanted to do development work, but to get into that world, it's becoming very popular. I mean, I guess it's a good sign that people care about others outside of their little bubble, and so it's becoming a really popular field to go into, and you have to have a master's to go into it. And so I was working in DC. I was working for a development organization, but as an intern, and I was living with a family friend who's an anthropologist, and one of my best friends is an anthropologist, and they're both sort of thinking about development work, and so and applying anthropology to development. And I thought, well, okay, I don't want to just do a professional program that will just get me a job. I want to have a sort of intellectual stimulation from a master's program as well. And so in the UK, they have several programs that combine anthropology and economic development. And so I applied, and it was also the timing of it. I mean, there just wasn't enough time to apply to U.S. master's programs at that point. So it was April I applied, and then I got in for that fall.
Wow.
And so, yeah, so that took me to London. And then in the program, I realized, yes, I should have always been studying anthropology. Like, that's what I really
You
love.
felt comfortable with it. You felt
Yeah,
it came to you easily.
it did. And I just thought it just changed the way that I thought about the whole world. I mean, it gave me the tools to analyze in a way that I loved. And I think, I was still thinking about the Middle East, but now I was looking at it in a completely different way, which wasn't just historically focused, although of course that comes into it, but it was also just thinking about how people live their lives and, ostensibly like in a very different way, but actually there's a lot of things that we can learn from the way they live their lives and things like that. So there was the anthropology side, and then there was the economics, and I had never studied either discipline, but I loved economics because I've been interested in the economy and how complicated it is and how it's presented as this thing that we'll just leave to the bankers to figure out and to manage because they know how it works and we'll pay them well.
Let me interject here, though.
Yeah.
I mean, saying that they know how it works. See, I have a problem with that.
Well, that's good because I think a lot of people just don't challenge that assumption that like they know how it works and so we'll leave it to them. But I agree.
I could never. I mean, I know a lot of people will hand their money over to 401ks, or they'll do this or they'll do that.
Yeah.
I never did. I never could. What do they know? Why, the trust was never there.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's just they know the system because essentially the economy is just people. I mean, it is our decision to set it up the way that it's been set up. I mean, it's hard now to change it in a lot of ways because it's so ingrained in the way that we think about the world, but ultimately it is just our choice, and they just have to be like the experts on the way that the system is organized. But
do you think they are marketed to be the experts?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. See, I do too.
Yeah. And that's what I would love to do with journalism and with anthropology is to sort of unpack the complexities of the economy and say,
Wonderful.
Yeah, like everybody can understand this, and we can demand a better system that's more equal, egalitarian, and people are doing it. And here's a demonstration of one woman who's sort of challenging the system, or and so I think I do have a sort of activist slant to my journalism, but I also think that just the more people know about how it works and are empowered then to act on it, I think things
But I
can
also
change.
think people deal on these things with fear.
Yeah.
I believe that your marketing, your commercials, your makes people say, well, how much money do you have in your wallet right now? If you
Yeah.
have $21, do you think that'll get you to the end of your life?
Yeah.
That's fear-based.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. And I think the questioning what you've been told by, by bankers, by marketers it's really hard because they've made it seem like this is the only way to set it
Right,
up, and it's the best way, if not the only way.
right,
But
and you're going to double your money.
yeah. Yeah.
Now, with you in London and studying
Yeah.
and seeing all this, which gave you a great tool,
Yeah.
how do you feel now?
Well, I'm excited about using what I learned in London in the real world, because I think, I mean, the attractive thing to do would be to start a PhD and continue being in school. I love being in school. I love that
Love
world.
learning.
Yeah, but I think what I came out of it with is this idea that we can practically apply everything I learned to just everyday exchanges and encounters and improve the world. So, and empower people to assert themselves and demand more from the system. And so
As
that's what I'm
one
trying to do.
person, it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
Are there a lot of you around? I want to know that. I mean, I want a lot of you out there.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, well, that's why I think that journalism and writing about amazing people, or just average people who are are looking at things differently, I think that can be the way that we multiply the number of people who have this understanding and who are willing to challenge what they've been told.
Well, I believe and I believe that. I mean,
Yeah.
that's absolutely true. But also the world has changed. The old rules, the old guidelines don't work anymore.
Yeah.
And people I see are still trying to live by the old rules, and they're just drowning. They're drowning
Yeah.
because things have changed so much with the economy,
Yeah.
with people. I believe that if you were raised to cross your T's and dot your I's,
Yeah.
and you never ventured out to, well, things have changed. You still cross your T's and dot your I's, but
Yeah.
you do it in a different way.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's true.
Things just have just really changed radically. And
Yeah.
I think with you and what you're saying is amazing and wonderful. You're seeing through a lot of the marketing ploys
Yeah.
and gimmicks.
Yeah.
People are people, they have feelings.
Yeah. Yeah, and people don't. I think the other thing that I was constantly questioning in economics is that people are just not motivated by money all the
No, they're not.
time. And the idea that people are just trying to get ahead as individuals, and that's the basis for how we understand capitalism. That's just not true. And the more that other people realize, we're social beings, and we care about other people, and we want to do things that help the world and are not just motivated by our own interests. I think we can. I don't know. I think there's room for improving society at large.
Oh,
about that.
absolutely. Absolutely. But
Yeah.
I think our government and different people they know it, but they haven't lived it or they haven't seen it.
Yeah.
There are so many levels of life, from poverty on up to your trust fund babies.
Yeah.
And people are surviving now in different ways.
Yeah.
Now, going from that, you write a blog.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about that.
Okay.
For our people in the audience,
Yeah.
what is a blog?
Well, I saw it when I started it. I was in London. It was last summer, and I realized that I wanted to write stories, and I wanted to share those stories with people. And I couldn't get into journalism immediately because I didn't have the training, I didn't have the connections. So it was a way for me to build my own platform to share with other people and to write and to be disciplined about it too. You know, I think when you have a blog, people expect you to write consistently, and you know, you hopefully build an audience through that consistency and the quality of your writing. And so it was a way that I could put my foot in the water, so to speak, and try out journalism and see if I liked it, and then also have something to show for like how serious I was about it to people who, you know, to established news organizations.
So now, how do you create a following?
Well, I guess that's something that I'm still trying to figure out. I don't know. I think
Because you do have a following. I saw that.
yeah. I mean, you know, initially it's just people you know, right? It's just sharing with everybody that you have met, and then also, you know, depending on who you're writing about, like they will share it with their network as well. And then I think if you want to be more proactive about it, then you find like-minded people who are also writing blogs, and then sort of start a dialogue between, you know, the two of you, and then you reach out to their followers, and so I think you do have to have a sort of trajectory that you're trying to set yourself on, and a sort of a purpose with the blog, because that will just help you connect with people who, you know, like then you sort of have an identity that you can share with people, and that people can, you know, identify you as well.
Well, I have a friend of mine, Robert Patrick, and he's in LA. He works for Chuck Jones. Chuck Jones Art Gallery.
Yeah.
Robert has worked there for years. We have been friends for 40 years. We don't see each other, we don't talk every day.
Yeah.
But he has been doing a blog for years.
Wow.
Reading it, you know, I'm now, you know, he sends it to me. A lot of it is about us when we first met and all of our friends, and how he became where he's at. It's more of a personal blog.
Yeah. Right.
Of a growth.
Right.
And there's times I see little paragraphs in there of when we were younger and out at the bar dancing our little heart off to disco music, you know?
Yeah.
And I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
But he's got a following as well. But his is more personal.
Right. Yeah, and I think I mean, the first blogs I read were all food related because I love cooking.
Okay.
And so, the ones that are successful are personal, and you feel like you understand the person who's writing, and they're good writers, and they, you know, convey their character through that writing. And I think I didn't want to do that. I knew that I was not interested in like a recipe blog or anything like that, but I did know that I wanted to be a presence in the blog, but I didn't want it to be a diary.
Right. Robert's got a diary.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's valuable too. I mean, I think the more I write on the blog, I realize, like, you know, you can't take yourself out of it and make it just totally objective. I mean, that just doesn't exist, and it's not that interesting either. So, so I'm not doing a diary, but I've become more comfortable with like allowing myself to be part of the narrative.
Okay.
And I think now, I mean, the blog has changed a little bit because I'm working at a radio station now, so I have a platform that's outside of the blog. So I'm now sort of posting what I'm doing at the radio station, and then with a little bit of kind of framing of like where this idea came from, and that's where the personal side comes in.
Okay.
That it's not, like for the radio, it's just a story,
Yeah.
and I was the reporter and I was the producer, but my voice is not really in it. And then when I bring it over to the blog, then I say, well, I was interested in this topic because something
More of a
hit me.
personal touch. Because when I
Right.
was looking at your blog, I mean, you had My Paris Kitchen.
Yeah.
Now, that's a cookbook, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It came out last year, I think. And well, so the writer, David Leibovitz, has a blog, and it's very successful. And I mean, he was one of the earliest food bloggers. And when I was starting to read this online world of food, his was one of the first ones I read. And but he's also always published cookbooks, and he was coming to Charlottesville, Virginia, which is where I work, and somebody tipped me off to it, and so I wrote to him and I said, would you do an interview with me? And I mean, his book it's very personal. I mean, you just realize like a cookbook, the way that you get anybody to care about a topic is you make it personal and you make it a story, that it's not just it's not just dry recipes.
Yeah.
There is a real
person
yeah.
behind it. Now, the other thing I found interesting, the quilting connection.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Men are doing quilting.
Yeah, I know. I loved this story. So yeah, there's a gallery in Charlottesville, and they tend to show sort of social justice oriented artwork. And I didn't realize it at the time, but it was only a day or two exhibition because it's on tour. So it may very well be coming to Maine, I'm not sure. But basically there's a juvenile correction center outside of Richmond, Virginia, and a master quilter approached them with the idea of teaching a quilting class. It's a male juvenile correction center, and he himself is a man, and they liked it, and so he's been teaching for 3 years a class every day. These kids are in there from like 8 to 5, just working on quilts, but even there's a whole process to it. I mean, he really teaches them the history of quilt making and the detailing and how you
Wow.
put it together, and they have to know all the vocabulary and
It's a bonding.
yeah, and that's what I found when I was talking to them. So they were at the exhibition. There were 3 residents and the teacher, and initially, you think like, why would these men? There's so many stereotypes about who quilts, and masculinity is not wrapped up in quilting at all. So, but I realized that for them, it is really about the social bond.
Yeah.
And because a lot of them had grandmothers or aunts who did quilting, and they remember that, and then also the idea that you can be connected to society through quilting because you're locked up, but you can give quilts out and give them back to your family, and they've reached a point where they're producing so many that they're donating them to homeless shelters.
It's a concept I never even thought of, never even heard of until I looked at your blog. I mean, I never really thought about that.
No,
Now, you had another one, Vinegar Hill.
Yeah, so this is a community in Charlottesville that was raised in the 60s through a federal grant, and it's something that I've always been aware of. I mean, it's still called Vinegar Hill, even though the neighborhood that was there, that was destroyed, is no longer there. It's much more commercial now. But so I'd always heard about it, and everybody talks about it as this sort of dark moment in Charlottesville's history because it was a Black community. It was relatively affluent, but it was seen as a blight on the city, and so it was completely destroyed. And the story that I was talking about in that post is that just recently, this boy who grew up in Charlottesville, who was 16 when they destroyed the neighborhood, went and took pictures right before it happened. And he'd never been there before. He didn't grow up there, but he loved taking pictures, and he imagined himself to be a life photographer. And so he really captured this moment that there's just no record of it. I mean, most of the images you have of Vinegar Hill are aerial photos that are taken by, the government, and just show no personal side to this life. And so he takes these pictures in the 60s as a 16-year-old, sort of forgets about them, and then rediscovers them a few years ago. And I mean, just it's sort of like all these what if,
See, it takes one person
Yeah.
to think outside the box. He took photos,
Yeah.
forgot about them.
Yeah.
But at least you have that now as history.
Yeah.
See, that's, I mean, and then you went from that blog to Citizen Coke.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this woman here, you were comparing the marketing strategy?
Right. Well, yeah, so that was a new book that just came out, and he was from the writer's from Charlottesville, and I just reached out to him, and he is just writing this great history of Coca-Cola that shows that it was marketing, and that's sort of like what people cite, that it was this genius marketing campaign, but it was also the way that they modeled their business, which was to not own anything. Like they didn't. I mean, it is a marketing company in a lot of ways, but that means that they don't have to worry about fluctuations in sugar. They don't have to own plantations. So they're very nimble, is the expression they always use, and they can really develop with the times, and they've just taken over the world with this model that.
Yeah, I worked with Coca-Cola for many years when I had my company, and it was like you go into Atlanta and it's the land of Coca-Cola.
Right, and he was born there. That was the other interesting thing.
Yeah,
is that he came from that world. And so to question sort of like, how did this happen, was interesting for him. So.
Oh, absolutely. And, I love the fact that you said people hear the news and they block out a lot.
Yeah.
But your concept is they want to hear a story.
Yeah.
You can do the news as news, but when you put it into a story,
then it's suddenly interesting.
I love what you said there. I really do.
I think it's really true because I think it's so easy to say, oh, the earthquake in Nepal is tragic, and I'm so grateful that I'm not there, but you can dismiss it because you don't know those people, and they seem to be very different from you, and your life seems to have, their life has no relevance to yours. And so I think if you can show that, they have hopes and dreams and, everything that we all deal with, then it just becomes a much more interesting story. And it's a way to open up these parts of the world that otherwise would have no interest to most people.
You have an amazing quality of making the world seem small and understandable. You do.
Yeah.
The way you talk about it and the confidence behind you is amazing at your age. And I know you're young. I'm not going to ask you how old you are, but you're amazing. I mean, where does this all come from? I mean, growing up,
Yeah.
Well, I know that your mom's a professor.
Yeah.
And she's an amazing, intelligent woman.
She is.
But just, you have your own mind. I mean, you are like the next generation going forward.
Yeah. Well, it's taken a long time. I mean, I think a lot of it is that I really enjoy it, and
it shows.
And so, yes, I'm not sure where it's all going to end up, and I question sort of what I'm doing, but I'm so much happier doing this, like storytelling, than I was at the Arab Arts Organization, where I think the work they're doing, I don't want to undermine that, but my work in particular was not interesting to me. So I think that's what motivates me, is that I love what I'm doing.
It shows. It shows in your conversation. And we're running out of time, which is killing me.
Oh.
But I really want you to come back on the show again.
Okay.
And give the audience an update on where you're at from where we are now.
Yeah.
Now, what's your plan next?
Well, so right now I'm working on these 2 radio programs.
Now talk to me more about the radio programs.
Yeah.
How did you get into that?
Well, I think yeah, when I was thinking about journalism that I really love and that is focusing on or using storytelling as a way of telling the news, I think radio is just, I don't know, there's just an abundance of that. And I also think that radio is having a kind of renaissance with podcasting and it's just a growing media. And so I was looking for radio positions, even though I don't have that technical background, but I was drawn to the types of programming that's out there in radio. And so I found in Charlottesville, there's a local community radio station that produces an hour-long news show in the morning. It's focused on Charlottesville, but it sometimes we'll be talking about international events that have a local connection or whatever, and it's volunteer primarily, and so I just approached them, and the general manager happens to be an anthropologist, so that was a immediate connection, and now I just produce like 1 segment a week for that show.
Great.
And that's been really wonderful because they are letting me experiment and try new things and pushing me to do things that I'm not comfortable with or
That's
don't have a
wonderful.
background
Out of
in.
your comfort zone.
Yeah,
That's the only way you grow,
yeah.
is if you're pushed out of your
Yeah.
comfort zone.
No, I agree. And I think, yeah, I mean, the first time I had to do an interview was terrifying. But I knew that I wasn't great at it, but I loved, I mean, in the end, you get to talk to all these great people.
You get to talk to all these great people, and you seem to find your own rhythm. You find your
yeah.
own way about you that is yours and yours alone. I always
Yeah.
say, if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. So it's not easy.
No, yeah. But you learn so much too. I
learn.
mean, I'm sure you find this. Your guests teach you a lot.
My guests do, and I find each and every one I have on the show fascinating
Yeah.
in a whole different realm, in a whole different way.
Yeah.
And my concern is the audience, while they're sitting there and they're drinking their coffee or tea or whatever, they think, oh, gee, I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
It sparks one little thing.
Yeah. No, and that's definitely, I mean, I have to credit amazing radio shows that I listen to all the time that taught me that, there is a value and an importance to just average people sharing their experiences. Like, This American Life is a great example. And so I've been trying to the nice thing is that there is no formula for this show that I'm working on. It is just sort of flexible. And so I am trying to do much more produced segments where, I sit down for an hour-long interview and then I edit it to 10 minutes. And I try to leave myself out of it and sort of let them tell the story. And then I sort of, through meeting people there, I started working at another radio program that's very different because it's much more established and it's just once a week. And it's usually with notable people, people who have established themselves in their field. And that's where I learn a lot more about the technical side of it. And just there's a process that they go through. They do pre-interviewing and interviewing. And so I think I've learned a lot there. I'm not producing segments for them yet, but just seeing how the process works is really great. And to have that as a compliment with this other show, I mean, I'm just really lucky.
You are, but you're making it happen. You're going out there. You're saying, can I interview you?
Yeah.
You're the one making it happen. So give yourself the credit. You're very proactive for what you believe in, and that's just what it's about.
No, it does take pushing yourself.
You must push.
Yeah.
Oh, we got to go. Oh, darn. Well, you will come back.
Yeah, I'll come back.
When you come back to Maine, we're going to get you on the show, let the audience know what's new, what's going on.
Yeah.
And I thank you for taking the time and
Sure.
being on my show. And
Yeah.
this is
Thank
great.
you.
This is a whole other world that I'm learning about from you, and so is my audience.
Yeah, well, it
So
was fun.
thank you for being on here, Miranda.
You're welcome. Thank you
And
so
I
much.
want to thank our audience for taking the time and watching our show today. And we'll see you very, very soon. Bye-bye.